Hello, everybody, and welcome to Black Stars, the interview series with stars of the private investment industry geared towards educating and inspiring. This week, I am so glad to have the guest, Jack Lucas of Lucas Venture Group. They are a venture capital firm that works with early stage investment opportunities across all sorts of asset classes, AI, machine learning, and other types of organizations that might need some help in that regard. So without further ado, I'm gonna do a quick intro today. Meet Jack. Jack, how you doing today?
Hey Seth, I'm great. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about you and Lucas Venture Group.
Yeah, so I grew up in the Bay Area and I have always been interested in this industry. My father was a venture capitalist, my grandfather as well. So I'm now the third generation to do this work. I think just growing up in the Bay Area, just being surrounded by everything, it felt very natural to me, this industry. And I always expected to be, to find my way in this industry. But I think things accelerated a little bit. My father passed a few years ago, and that really sort of brought up the timeline for me. I've been working for a number of startups. I've pretty much always worked for startups. I just love, that small area, right? Small company, 5, 10 people, you really have a lot of impact and get to wear a lot of hats. So that's just always captivated me. And I was hoping to start my own company at some point, was getting ready for it. But then, things happened. And now I've moved full time into venture capital, which I love. It's a super exciting industry. My dad was always just, talking about how this is really one of the greatest jobs in the world. And I definitely feel that, a lot of pressure, and it can be a very intense industry, but, we like to have fun and really try and bring some levity into this while also doing a great job, for our portcos as well as our LPs.
Yeah, that's the impression that I've gotten from you. We've never met face to face. We've had a few conversations, but you're just this effervescent guy. You have a great smile, a great energy, and it seems like you'd be really, really fun to work with. What inspires you every single day? What gets you out of bed and gets you excited to do this?
Yeah, that's a great question. I just try and be inspired by life, really. I think death is something that's definitely, been at the forefront of my mind these last couple of years. And, just I mean, that was such an intense, experience to go through. And I think having that sort of constantly in the back of my mind has really just made me, appreciate that I'm here, that I exist, that I get to wake up every day. And so I try and, make the most of every day. Some days are good, some days are bad, but I'm here and I'm going to, make the most of it. I think there is so much excitement in this world. There's a lot of chaos going on, but I try and focus on the positive in everything I do. And that's what really keeps moving forward. There's so many good things in life, whether it's, working on an awesome deal with some amazing people, spending time with my friends. I like to swim a lot, which I think that's one of the best resets for me, is getting in the ocean and just, really trying to be present and take it, one day at a time and enjoy it.
Well, you're braver than me. I'm absolutely terrified of the ocean. Sharks terrify me. I've done about 20 triathlons, and I've never done one in open water except for a lake. So lakes are
Uh,
the places I can't do the ocean bit, but that's awesome. I think I was reading in your LinkedIn also, which if you're not following Jack on LinkedIn, you should follow him on LinkedIn and Lucas Venture Group as well. I think that you said that you're pretty great in terms of artistry, like photography, and then I think you surf. Is that correct?
It is, yeah. So photography has been a huge passion of mine for, gosh, probably like a decade now. I really got into it. I studied abroad in Berlin when I was at Duke, and I met one of my best friends there, Dalbert, and he was a big photographer, and we just got into it together and spent a lot of time roaming around the city taking pictures. And it's really stuck with me. My mom was a photographer growing up as well. She always had a camera. So it's something that's sort of been there. And then after that Berlin trip, I really, really got into it. And I don't know, it's such an amazing passion because it gets me out to these amazing places and gives me an excuse to go do something. And I don't know, it's really enjoyable capturing the moment. I have my walls are covered with a bunch of my favorite prints. This print right here is from one of my favorite trips I took with my sister to see the redwoods. So it's just, a lot of good memories. And then surfing, yeah, I do. I love surfing. It's my brother got me into that one, gosh, probably 3 or 4 years ago now. No, maybe more actually, probably 5 or 6. And it's been a, huge part of my life since then. It's just getting in the ocean, I think, is one of the best things, as I said. And then, you meet some amazing people, also some really mean people. People can be really, really brutal out on the waves. But I think it's just this beautiful dance you get to do with the ocean. I've always loved the water. I played water polo growing up. And so it feels very natural to me. And it's one of my favorite things in the world for sure.
That makes sense. You're a multifaceted guy, and I think one of the most important things, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And I think
Mm.
the way that in this industry, from what I can tell, you really connect with people is by having interesting stories, being, culturally sensitive, but also very like culturally centric, where a lot of different things. Like you've obviously spent a lot of time in the ocean. You've also spent time across seas in Europe, and you're going to all these great places taking pictures. I think that makes you really relatable. Like, what are some of the sort of the techniques that you use to connect with people? Because everybody has their own little superpower, especially in this industry. What makes you relatable and fun to work with, or who do you look for when you're looking for a partner?
Yeah, I think one of the key things is just good people, right? People who you can laugh with and aren't going to take things too seriously, right? We do very serious work, but it's really important that we bring some levity into it. So just if I'm laughing with somebody, like it's a great fit, and I think also amazing friends, right? Really surrounding myself with amazing people and then getting to meet their friends. That's a huge way I meet other people. I don't really do a ton of the conferences or anything like that. I should probably go to a couple more, but I think really sort of the friend of friends and finding in that way. And then also just finding people who are doing really cool stuff online. Like if I see somebody that's super passionate about something, they're probably an awesome person, because that they just sort of seem to go hand in hand, right? And so I'll reach out to people online. I found an awesome deal that way. Just reached out to someone who's he's clearly just so interested in his lane, and talked to him, great fit, became a great friend, and we ended up investing in them. So, definitely a lot of angles, but I think it all starts with just sort of that, that vibe. Like, do you connect with somebody? Do you feel good energy from them? Right. I don't really have time for bad energy. So it's all about finding the good energy.
I like that. Yeah, the organic approach is such a good way, not just in business, but friendships and colleagues as well. All right, so let's get down to brass tacks about your day to day. So, like, what would you say are some of the most exciting or transformative aspects of your work?
Wow, exciting and transformative. I would say exciting for me is just getting to work with people and seeing what they're doing. The the venture capital and the startup industry, they attract, it attracts people who have so much passion and they want to go out and do something better or do something different. And so that's just an amazing starting place, right? You already have this incredible group of people who are self-selecting into this. And so getting to work with them is just super exciting, right? I get to, work with some of the smartest people in the world who are working on some of the most exciting, hardest problems, stuff that hasn't been done before, looking at new ways of doing things. That is just incredibly exciting to me. The status quo is awesome. We need some of that for sure. But for me, I really find excitement in what's coming down. Like, what does the future look like? I read a lot of sci-fi, and that's what gets me excited, right? And so being able to work with that every day is pretty powerful. In terms of transformative, I mean, kind of the same thing, just getting to work with people and help guide them as they shape the future. We have a lot of responsibility to do good in this world and to bring about a better future, and getting to play a small part in that is really exciting, really powerful. It's an amazing feeling. And I think I get much more joy from helping somebody else succeed versus myself. And so that, like, when one of our companies is doing amazing, I'm through the roof because I'm just so happy for them. And then of course, sometimes it's down, they're going through a tough time and you feel horrible, but it's really, I mean, it's all for that just amazing outcome, moving the needle, helping people. It's really exciting.
Yeah, I think that makes total sense. Without giving away your playbook, are there certain ingredients, certain recipes that you use to sort of get somebody onboarding or walk them through the process on that way up to hopefully hockey stick growth? Or when they're down, like what are some things that you tell them? How do you help? I think a lot of times you have to be a counselor or a therapist in this industry.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think leadership is very lonely, and it can be very hard on the CEOs, especially. It takes a very special person to run a startup, and it's a lot of work and it doesn't stop, and you are going to have a lot of sleepless nights. And so I think just being there for people is huge. I mean, we have had so many founders tell us, thank you for just being there. Thank you for believing in us. We've been first money in on deals where nobody else wanted to put money in. And, we have one company right now, they almost folded initially. We ended up putting money into them when they needed it. And now they have, 20,000 people on the wait list, right? So, and that is just amazing to see, right? I mean, just from the bottom, just being so worried and like, am I doing the right thing? Should I even continue? And now all of a sudden it's like, wow, we've made something amazing that people like, or love, because we believed in them and we supported them. So I think, that's really one of the most important things is just being, supportive, being a cheerleader, right? And really, really helping them out with everything, any issues, we're always here to talk and help in all ways we can, because it's not just business stuff. There's also a lot of, personal stuff that goes on that needs to be dealt with.
Absolutely. So when it comes to those moments where it's a little bit more challenging, like what are some of the biggest challenges that you've had maybe personally and at Lucas Venture Group, and maybe even with clients? So I know it's sort of this multi-pronged question. Answer it as you see fit.
Yeah, I mean, biggest challenges. The challenges never stop. There's always something, right? It's like there's always something going wrong. There's always something that you can do better. So, I think a big thing is prioritizing them. What really matters, right? What should we spend our focus on? Helping people understand, not everything has to be dealt with today, but the key stuff does. I think, at LVG, our biggest problem, I don't know what our biggest problem is really. I mean, we have amazing deals coming in. I think the hardest thing probably is fundraising. That's what I'm working on right now. This is my first time fundraising. And we have an amazing group of LPs who've been with us forever, super supportive, very grateful for them. But now, it's up to me to find new people. Right. And going out to my friend, being a salesman. I'm not a salesman. I've never really done sales. It's not, I don't feel like I'm good at selling. Sarah always tells me, she's like, you need to sell better, like just, go in with a little more confidence. I'm a little bit more of a pessimist or realist sometimes. Yeah. And so that's been a challenge for me is sort of overcoming that, and being confident in what we're doing and what I know we can achieve, and setting big goals and going after it. I think that's sort of one of my biggest challenges right now. Company wise, I mean, we have all sorts of challenges. This company needs money, so we have to help them fundraise. This company's having a problem with users, so we have to help them think about, different strategies around that. I mean, there's a huge range there for sure. Right now, I'm trying to think what our biggest issues are really. I mean, knock on wood, everything's going pretty well right now.
Good. Well, that's good. And I mean, honestly, the fundraising aspect is something I'm going to prod you a little bit with that. Make you a little uncomfortable for a while here. That's something everybody's going through. How are you guys sort of overcoming that right now? If it's not natural to you and it's a tough time in the industry right now, like what are you doing to pump yourself up? What are you doing to are you looking into resources? Are you talking with people? Do you have mentors that you connect with? Do you ask your LPs for advice? Do you ask, these companies, these port companies that you're working with for advice from them as well?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of everything. I'm very fortunate to have inherited this base, right? We have a great base with LVG, great LPs. And so that was sort of the starting point as we raised this new fund. Let's go to the existing LPs, work with them and see what they're interested in. And, for the most part, they've been incredibly supportive, which has been very, very awesome for us and very helpful for us. So that was sort of, start there. Once we got through that, then I was like, okay, how do we expand? So I went through and made an Excel list of everybody I know who might be interested, basically, my friends, and started reaching out to some of them, and have had some awesome interest there, and it's been fun, I think, to connect with people in a business capacity, right? And I think this work is very exciting to some people. Some people, I texted them, are like, hey, like, what are you doing? Like, I'm not interested, and so that was good, getting shut down a little bit and learning to deal with that. But for the most part, people are like, this is awesome. I'd love to participate somehow. Or, hey, this is awesome. I can't participate, but keep me in the loop. Like people have been really supportive. The LPs have been supportive. I talk to some of them a lot. Some of them do introduce us to others. We have some of their children coming in, so generational as well. We definitely have to be careful with, public outreach, right? There's solicitation rules. So I can't just go blast it on my LinkedIn, which honestly makes it a little challenging because I know some people would see that and be like, oh, that's awesome. Let's get in touch. So it's kind of like this, like, behind the scenes maneuvering. And it's been a good challenge. It's been really fun. I think, working with Sarah, and then we have a new venture partner, Nick Dane, who is just an incredible guy and unbelievably connected. And really, I've drawn some inspiration from them just in the way they operate, the way they're sourcing LPs. So that's been a huge help for me to learn from. We're doing some in-person stuff. We have an LA thing coming up. So, really, I mean, there's so many ways we're going about it.
Well, I think that's smart. If you're not thinking about growth, then you're not going to survive. So the fact that it's constantly at the forefront of your mind is a good thing. And I think it's great actually that you're getting that constructive feedback from your team of, hey, you're doing this wrong, or there's certain things that you could be doing better. Like honestly, that's the only way any of us ever get better. There's no way that any of us would ever be where we're at right now if we weren't standing on the shoulders of giants, people that have done this before or failed, right? Or made a mistake. Like honestly, that's where you get most of your great advice or your good experience so that you know the next time. Heck, even these interviews that I do, my first few were, they were a little bit shoddy. And as through the years, as I've done them, I've gotten better. I've gotten more comfortable in my own skin being on camera. And it's the same thing with sales as well. All right, shifting the focus back to you again. So from your perspective, where do you see the future of this industry going? Venture capital, private equity, throwing that one out there. Big song.
Yeah. I think it's a super interesting time right now. One of the big things I've noticed is a lot more participation from individuals, right? And some of the regulations changed around that, so we're seeing more crowdfunding, and that's been super interesting. And I think there's definitely a future there. I think right now it's been a little shaky, honestly. I did some of the crowdfunding stuff just to participate and understand, and it feels like there's a lot of scraps being tossed around there. So I'm a little hesitant on that. Most of the deals, that I did, I don't know if you've heard of Republic, but I tried that, and it's been pretty hit or miss there. So I do think there's a future there. I'm really excited by that. I'm really excited that people are being, given these opportunities that have historically been behind closed doors. I think that's amazing. I think there's a little bit of a ways to go in terms of actually making it equitable. And I think, it's very easy to trick people in this industry. Frankly, it's, there is a whole language and way that things are done that not everybody knows, and it takes some time to learn. And, I was fortunate to grow up in that and see some of those tricks, right? But until you make the mistake, you don't know. So I do think there's the huge future there. Really excited by it. We've seen a lot of angel participation as well. So not necessarily crowdfunding, more so just slightly larger checks, which again has been really interesting. I do think the angel, there's a lot of potential there. Again, I think we've seen some issues with that, just where these companies are taking in all this money from all these people, and then nobody's an actual VC. So it's like the terms are wrong, or, they're raising too much too fast. And so that's something we've worked on a bit is sort of, trying to coach people on, how do you take the money well, and not just relying on angels. You need some bigger groups at the table. I think also just, there's a ton of interest in this space, right? I mean, there is so much money coming into this. There are so many big players. It feels like it's growing up a bit in the sense that it's becoming more scientific, right? Everybody's really putting these methods in place. There's a lot of investment bankers coming over, bringing their expertise. And I think all that stuff is great. For me, I do think there's some artistry in this industry. And I think it's really important that we hold on to that. The early stage is sort of this magical place. And I don't think it's all numbers, and I try to be mindful of that. But I'm excited. We have new tools, right? We're on Carta now, and it's, we have all this new stuff that wasn't available. Everything was on Excel sheets, and it still is. We still do a lot of stuff in Excel, one of the best tools ever, but there is so much more coming down. LPs are expecting more. My friends who, maybe in previous generations wouldn't have even considered VC are now like, they're doing little deals on their own, right? So it's very exciting, and people, I feel like there's a lot of excitement right now, and so I just want to keep that going.
That's awesome. So good point that you brought up. There is a lot of money there's a lot of this dry powder. People talk about the dry powder. It's either sitting at the fund right now and it's not being deployed, or there's investors that are just sitting on their cash. And so it makes this interesting sort of juxtaposition of what's occurring in the market right now. And so even like emerging VCs sometimes have a hard time getting deals funded, because even though it's a great deal, people are just sitting on the money, or they're deploying their capital to these more established funds while things are a little bit nebulous in the industry. How do you think an emerging fund, succeeds in a day like today where there is sort of this money either being held on to by the LPs, or it's actually being like promised money is being deployed to bigger funds right now?
Yeah, it's hard. I think it's honestly a bit of an issue really in all the industries, right? I mean, we're just seeing this whole monopoly, oligopoly thing play out. And it's just, there is way too much power consolidated at the top. And I don't think it's good. It's just, we can't have three people running the whole country. That's just not going to be good for anybody. And so it's a little frustrating sometimes just seeing, these like this $1 billion venture fund, right? I mean, that's ridiculous. It's awesome, but it's also ridiculous the amount of power and control that has. And I think, we see a lot of that play out where some of these companies just get money thrown at them and then all the valuation is crazy. And then when it actually goes public, it's brought back down to earth a little bit. And I think that's sort of been one of the bigger symptoms of it. In terms of what we're doing, I think at the end of the day, we have to provide a return to our LPs. And so that's a big focus on us, is if we have good returns, the money will come because people want to make money. And so a huge focus is making sure we're in good deals, making sure our track record can speak for itself, basically. Definitely harder for me as, this is my first fund as a GP. I don't necessarily have a track record. I can point to, my father's work as sort of evidence of what we are capable of, but that's not me. And so I definitely have to perform a bit. I'm very happy with the deals I've found so far. And when I share those with our LPs, they're very excited. So I think that's helpful, but I do think it's hard. I was talking to one of my friends at Morgan Stanley and he's like, yeah, hey, man, nobody wants to invest in this right now. They're getting, 6% on their money, whatever, like it's too risky. They don't want it. And, that's just, some people just want to do that. We are looking for people who are interested in other stuff besides just parking their money, right? They want to see it go into creating these new opportunities. So it's maybe a bit more of a specific person. They want to help nurture these industries. And, we work with some of our LPs very closely. So that's also something we do is we provide them opportunities, right? We have some of our LPs will work with our portcos, with logistics or, whatever the LP specializes in, basically. So really trying to create opportunities for people so that everyone is interested in the work and feels valuable contributing.
That's great. Okay, so this industry is pretty innate to you. You were basically born into it, and you've grown and you've learned throughout your time working at the firm and actually working at startups. But I want to ask, are there any like books, resources, sort of, practices that you do on your own independently, just you found these things on your own that have really helped you to grow into your role and your capacity at the firm today?
Yeah, I think in terms of business specific stuff, there's not really a ton that I would point to. I've read some business book. I've read like Poor Charlie's Almanac. I think was an awesome book. What is the one I started, like the Masters of Private Equity and Venture Capital. That's one that's pointed to often, and I think those are great books. I think they provide some awesome insight and just some ideas into how people are thinking. For me, what I've focused more on is just personal development. Because I think if I'm a good person and I'm, happy and healthy and all that, then it'll naturally translate into my work, and I mean, I studied economics at Duke and, I spend time like looking at credit card deals and stuff, right? So I'm definitely like doing random stuff in the sort of finance industry, but really it's more been this holistic approach. It's like one of my favorite books is Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. And that's not necessarily a business book, right? That's just like a book full of wisdom. You can open any page and walk out of that with 15 things to think about. How do you want to live? Death is coming for you, like, prepare for it, right? Don't be worried, but like, live each day, right? So that I would say is one of my most fundamental books. Right now I'm reading Ministry for the Future and Drawdown because I'm just like, I'm so tired of being frustrated with this whole climate issue. And, I'm trying to get more insight and hope, frankly, for the future. So that's, sort of me trying to channel that negativity into a positive thing. But yeah, I mean, book-wise, I think everything comes into play here, right? If you just focus on what you're interested in, it'll find its way into your business. And that's why I do all these different things. It's like, this is stuff that just naturally builds me up and makes me feel good. And that is going to translate into business, like, right. I have a morning routine. I do my workout, et cetera. Right. And that's not necessarily a business thing, but it preps me for the day, keeps me healthy, gets my mind and body right. And, this was when you present that question, I had like a whole list of things I do in here. So I don't know how deep you want to get into this one.
Get into it.
Yeah. I would say, I think one of the most powerful things I ever learned is we don't get to control what happens to us, but we get to control how we react. And that has been foundational for me. And just understanding, bad stuff's going to happen, stuff you don't like is going to happen. What are you going to do about it, right? You can sit there and cry and wallow and complain and keep doing that forever, or you can get really frustrated or use that as fuel, whatever, and build yourself up. So that's something I think about all the time. There's the Chinese proverb, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. That's when I think about daily, just like, what's done is done, move forward, do something good now. So really, really just trying to stay on top of that. I do a ton of self-reflection. I spend time alone in nature. I walked the John Muir Trail with my brother, which took about 3 weeks. And that's just, just me time, just thinking, just letting whatever's in my mind come through it and, looking at it, understanding it, thinking about, who do I want to be? I had a water polo coach. His motto was be your best. That's one that's stuck with me forever, right? Just get out there and make it happen, really.
Yeah, it's so funny, those little things that stick with you. My third base coach for the Bulldogs Little League team always told me, you hesitate, you lose. And
Yeah.
that stuck with me forever. He told me
Yeah.
that probably first when I was 7 or 8 years old. And to this day, I think to myself, you hesitate, you lose.
Mm-hmm.
He might have been
That's a great
talking
one.
about going from third to home,
Yeah.
but I think about that in every aspect of my life, whether it's, with a friendship, like, hey, can I do more on this? In, a business partnership with my family, even myself, right? I race a lot. I do a lot of triathlons. Like, man, you hesitate, you lose. And it completely makes sense. So I get that. Those little things definitely stay with you. I like
Yeah.
what you said about, your morning routine. I think we're so infiltrated, and we were talking about this earlier, but with content, right?
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
just get glued to your phone and these screens. And, it's sort of kind of ironic because we're going to be sharing this and people are going to be
Yeah.
glued to their screens watching this. But you got to hope that after this, they take 10, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, whatever it is, go to the gym, take a walk, you know, have a conversation with your family, like eat dinner together, turn all your phones off. That is so important. I do the same thing. I work out every single morning. That is, I got to get that serotonin. I got to get that dopamine spike,
Yeah.
all the endorphins going so much better at my job. I'm such a better person as a result of doing that too.
Yeah.
So I
And
think that's
it's a hard one
so,
because it's,
yeah.
it's like people don't want to work out, right? Like it's hard. It's exhausting. Some days I wake up and I'm laying in bed. I'm just like,
Uh-huh.
but most days I'm like, I'm stoked to do it, and then even the days when I'm not stoked to do it and I finish, I'm like, that wasn't so bad. And now I feel amazing, right? Like there's like this basic stuff that we all need to do, like sleeping, right? We all need to sleep, and people will play with that all the time and they'll pull all nighters and stuff and it just wrecks you.
Mhm.
And it's like there's just basic stuff that if you do, you're going to be so much happier. And yeah, definitely not being glued to Reddit is one of them. But it's hard, right? It's easy. You're tired, you just flip through, and it's easy. You get the dopamine, but it's like what's it actually doing for you? The hard stuff in my life has been the most rewarding, and so I try and seek that stuff out. You can only
Yeah.
do so much of it, but it's definitely rewarding.
Yeah, I was talking with our CEO today, and I was like, you know what? Like, we're pretty honest and open with each other. We have great conversations that sometimes are like a little contentious, but not in the wrong way. It's
Mm-hmm.
like we know we're moving towards something as a result of having this. And I even told him, I was like, I need to outsource some stuff. Like, there's just
Mm-hmm.
too many little things that I'm doing right now that need to be outsourced, or I need to take a half day or a day off randomly every so often. He's
Mm-hmm.
like, you should do it. The
Yeah.
fact that I had that support is really good for me. Like, you should do that. That's good for you. Will ultimately be better at your job as a result of doing those things. And I think that's so important. It is really, I found that I wasn't turning things off, which leads me to my next question. How do you turn it
Yeah.
off? You have a million different things that you're doing right now, and you're learning on the
Mm-hmm.
job, right? As a GP, there's a lot. You never stop
Mm-hmm.
learning. How do you turn
Yeah.
it off?
I mean, it never does. It's like I think about this stuff nonstop. I will have conversations, at the end of the day about something I was thinking about from work. It doesn't really turn off for me. I think there's sort of two things to that. One is enjoying it. Like I love what I do. I love the people I work with. And so it's when I think about this stuff, for the most part, it's not me being stressed out or frustrated. It's me being excited, right? Like I'm excited about what's to come. I'm thinking about all these new things we want to implement, new strategies, etc. So that's it like, it doesn't bother me that it doesn't turn off because it's just exciting. If I do want to turn off, really, I think exercise is a huge way, right? Right. I do the morning routine, I do yoga, surfing, backpacking, all those things. Like, I have no distractions. When I'm out surfing, nobody can text me. And so all I'm thinking about are the people around me, the waves, this beautiful ocean that I get to play in. And so that's like the most turned off I get, sort of same with backpacking. I don't use my phone. It doesn't have service, or, it's on airplane mode at least.
Mhm.
And nobody, I carry an emergency thing, but nobody can reach me. And so it's just me, and everything in my brain is going to run through, and eventually maybe I'll run out of things, and then it's like extra quiet. But I think the nature piece, I think, is one of the key pieces, and sort of what you said, actually, like taking days. I'll take a half day sometimes. Every day is not the same. Some days you need different things. Some days I can grind for 10 hours, and some days I just need to like chill and sit in the sunshine. And so really understanding that, and it can be hard, right? People will be, oh, you're being so lazy, you're taking a day to sit in the sun, but it's like, we got to recharge.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so much better at my job or at anything when I take some time to just veg
Mm-hmm.
out, like a half day. Even just
Mm-hmm.
logging on 2 hours late or logging off 2 hours early,
Mm-hmm.
knowing in my brain that I have that shut off valve is so helpful. And then I remove Slack from my phone. I remove Gmail from my phone. Like, I literally give myself 0 apps to look at, and I just immerse myself. And it's amazing. It's like any vacation. The first 2 hours while you're on that plane, all you're doing is thinking about work. Oh,
Yeah.
there's all these things. And then by the time you touch down, you forget about it.
Mm-hmm.
You're just like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I'm on vacation right now. Like, I'm not going to worry about that. I have no power over this right now. And that's completely okay.
Yeah. Just enjoy it.
Enjoy it. Okay, I've got a handful more of questions for you if you'll give them to me.
All
Uh,
right.
so what advice would you give to anybody that's just starting to try to like break into this industry right now?
Yeah, I think the number one piece, as with any job, is you have to love it, right? You have to enjoy it. And, I think a lot of people are attracted by the dollar signs, and that's great, but that's not going to carry you through the tough times. You have to love it, right? You just, like, for me, I am so thrilled to learn things and to interact with these people, right? And that is what excites me. And so if that doesn't excite you, then it's probably not going to be for you. So that's the first step, is really just like, is this what you want? I talked to one of my friends the other day, and she's like, I don't know if this VC thing's for me. And that's fine. It's not like, computer programming isn't for everybody, and so really, making sure that it's actually what you want. And then once you decide it's what you want, you have to go and get it, right? It can be a very cutthroat and ruthless industry. I think for me, I had a somewhat easy entry into it. So it's a little hard for me to give advice to people like trying to break in, because I didn't necessarily have to break in. I just, I was already doing. And so that's like definitely a leg up for me. I think one big thing I've noticed though is it's easy to waste your energy. And so you really have to decide, like, what do you want out of your work, right? Are you the person who's going to go to all the conferences and network people and meet everybody? Like, is that your lane? Or like, are you the ops person, right? And you're going to run this firm so well that like you're invaluable to your team, right? There's all these different ways to participate in the space. And I think finding the one that speaks to you is really important. Like, for me, I'm a big ops guy. I've done a lot of ops work for a company, and it's made everybody's lives easier. So that's where I sort of focus. Now I'm starting to focus a little more on the networking and that sort of thing, going to conferences, right? So sort of figuring out, what interests you, what are you good at? Where do you want to take this, right? What's your end goal here, And then I think, a lot of people in this industry are super nice, and reaching out to people. If you put in a little bit of work and say, hey, I'm super fascinated by what you're doing, I'd love to chat. I've gotten some really positive responses from people doing that. I think people are interested in helping because they were helped, and it's just, it's the right thing to do, and it's fun. It's exciting working with young people, and so I think just reaching out to people and making an effort will get you far.
Yeah, it sounds like you use a lot of intuition, a lot of things that you do. You're also pretty entrepreneurial by nature, from what it sounds like. You had mentioned that you were thinking about starting your own company as an entrepreneur when you were younger. I'm just curious what type of company that was, what you were thinking about.
Yeah, VCs love B2B SaaS, so probably would do it there, right? You have no problem raising money with that. No, I hadn't really thought about it too much. I just knew, I've studied this industry, and so, people who are successful are generally a little bit older, sort of mid 30s and up, right? You have some experience in the business world. Like when I came out of college, I had no idea what the business world is really about. I've been in it a bit. I've spent some time, right? And you're missing that piece, I think, when you're still in school. So for me, it was waiting until I was later. And then, I was going to spend like a year just thinking of ideas. I have a little notepad. I write down ideas sometimes. I have this music idea that I've thought about since college. I still think there's a lot of room for Spotify to be better. I'm really happy with some of the stuff they've released lately, but music's a big passion of mine. And I sort of spec'd out this whole thing when I was in college. So that was sort of where I was thinking, but really it was just, probably in the software space. I can program. So I figured I'd just, do the MVP myself, basically.
Awesome. Okay, last 3 concerts that you've been to.
Oh, geez. What were the last 3? I just went to Drake up in the Bay Area. So
Nice.
that was interesting. It was my favorite line from the whole show was he was just like, Bay Area, I love you. I miss you. I brought the fizz and not the riz. And we still aren't entirely sure what that means. We know what fizz is, like fizzle, but I'm not really sure what the riz is. But so that was fun. And then
Start a company to figure out what rappers are saying in between their songs.
Yeah. I saw, gosh, who did I see? We saw oh my gosh, I'm totally blanking on their name right now. The Flaming Lips.
Oh, awesome. That's
Flaming
a
Lips.
solid throwback right there. I saw them at Lollapalooza. I'm dating myself here, in 2006, I believe.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow. I saw them at Outside Lands probably around that time. It was like 10 years ago or something. But we saw them. There's a new venue that just opened around here, and we saw them there. Amazing, amazing show.
Yeah.
And then before that, I don't know if there's anything before that. It might be, I forget which one was first. It was either Jack Johnson or Billie Eilish, one of those two.
Nice.
Yeah.
Sort of different vibes between them. You got the
good
surfer
spread.
vibe or kind of emo grunge type of scenario go, but I love that. That's I'm going to Fish tomorrow. So
nice.
Music was top of mind for me. And I've seen a bunch of different bands. Like I went to the National a couple weeks ago. The California Honey Drops, Bay Ledges, Future Islands, The Movement. I've seen a bunch of different shows recently.
You're a big concert guy.
I'm a huge concert guy. I buy a t-shirt at every single show I go to. And I was joking with my sister that I don't have to buy any new shirts this year because I have 10 from concerts alone. So, all right, a few more questions.
That's so good.
I want to know any mistake that maybe you've made that turned out to be a really valuable lesson.
Yeah, man. I think endless mistakes. I'm always making a mistake, and I think the big piece from that is learning from them. Right. I think one of the most powerful ones for me that I think about all the time was in college. I had amazing teachers in high school who really cared about me. I was their friend. They nurtured me, etc. I got to college and I expected my professors to be the same, and they didn't care. They were doing their research. They had a huge class of 500 kids, whatever. They weren't interested in me. I was just another person. I didn't really have my support structure or anything like that. And so that was a really challenging time for me. I felt like everything that I had known and expected from education and those around me sort of faded away, and I had to find a new way of living. And it was a very powerful time for me. I think it was really hard in the moment. I felt very unsupported, and I didn't know what I was supposed to be doing. Besides going to class, obviously. And so I think making mistakes there and sort of, trying to figure out like, okay, I could do this, but should I do this? Like what do I want to do with my life? How do I guide myself? Right. There's no playbook for me right now. And sort of writing that own playbook for myself, taking from other people. I think that's when I read Meditations for the first time, which was, hugely impactful for me. But sort of taking all those different learnings and failures, along the way, right? There's so many failures when I was in college. I one of the gravest was I set off a fire extinguisher in my dorm because I was like, oh, how does this thing work? Like I'm curious, right? And then that almost got me kicked out of school, right? So like that was like, could have been like a crucial mistake. And I think it ended up being a very powerful thing. I had to do some community service work and all this sort of stuff. And so it's really that was a very powerful time for me. A lot of mistakes and really, I think, helped me figure out, like, what do I want to do? What should I be doing?
Yeah, I think that completely makes sense. Not all of us have set off a fire alarm, but
I know.
at some point we've all tried to be like a pyromaniac or something like that with fireworks.
Exactly.
So I completely get that.
Yeah.
So how do you hope that your work will positively impact the industry or society as a whole?
Yeah. I think we are at a very trying time, and I think we're at a very pivotal moment for our society and our world. And I see a lot of anger and frustration and just despair, frankly. I mean, people are so worried. And I don't know if that's unique to this era. Talking to my grandparents, like, I think some of this is not new, but I think it's overwhelming right now because of how frequently we get news and how tailored it is to just make us react. And so, my goal really is to just be a bright light and to make the world a better place, right? I think I have a great opportunity here to help a lot of people help the world, right? And so we look, all our deals we look for some component that, is moving the world forward in a positive way. One of the first deals that Sarah did that really sort of brought her into venture was called Pallet Shelter. And what they do is they build they're mini houses basically, right? They're called pallet shelters because you can ship them around on a pallet, etc. It's super small, right? And so they have all these homeless camps now where they are giving homeless people a space that is their own. The door locks, they have access to showers, etc. And then they employ people who are, were homeless or, were incarcerated and have trouble finding work, etc. Right? So it's like this unbelievable company that is helping people, giving people opportunity, and it's been a fantastic investment for us so far. And so I think, like, that is a great example of the impact we can have. And, what I want to do as we move this company forward, right, is just bringing good into this world, solving these issues. I mean, people, homelessness is a huge issue, especially in California. And, having some solution to that and being a part of that solution is an amazing feeling.
That's awesome. I love that. Okay, well, sort of goes without saying. I was going to say, can you share a story about how your work has made a difference in someone's life? Pretty
Yeah.
good story right there. If you have anything to add, anything else, I love hearing it.
Yeah. I mean, I think, sort of what I was saying earlier, just about the entrepreneurs, right? I mean, one of the best feelings for me is we've had, since I started, especially since I came over full time, we've had multiple entrepreneurs who are just like, thank you for believing in me, thank you for supporting me. I mentioned B2B SaaS earlier, right? Like, every VC wants to do B2B SaaS and get the 100x. We look for some of that, but we also want to do stuff that has a mission impact, right? We funded this death startup chapter, and that's been hard, right? I mean, who really cares about death? We all are going to experience it, and it's a huge thing in our lives, but like, would you pay money for death? Like, it's kind of like it's a weird thing, but it's been super impactful, being a part of that company, working with Rayhan, the founder, and just seeing the passion that he brings. And, I mean, this is his vision. This is his life. He has put everything on the line for this company, and it's all really starting to fall into place for him. And it's just been incredibly exciting to witness that and to be a part of that and to, support him as best we can.
What do they do? I don't think I know.
Chapter, yeah, so it's a death memorialization platform. So basically they are working to, once somebody passes, they're working to memorialize it better, right? Most people, it's like you take out the obituary in the paper and that's it. But this person, they're leaving all their friends and family behind, and so it's working to create almost like a social network around it, right? You can create this space for your loved one who passed, and you can share it with people, and people can add photos and videos and write things and say, oh my, I miss you so much, Dad, whatever it may be, and really create that space for people to, partly grieve, but also celebrate the life. I mean, this is someone amazing in your life and they're gone, but they don't have to be completely gone. You're still going to think about them, and sort of having this, you can open up on your phone, and having this connection to them still has been very powerful for people.
That totally makes sense. It resonates really well with me. All of my grandparents have passed, and on all of their birthdays, and even my great aunt's birthday is today. Everybody in my family remembers their birthdays and sends out like a text to our disc in our family thread saying like, oh, it's, Aunt Ann's birthday today, or it was, I called my grandparents Bama and Bonpa. I couldn't say grandpa when I was a kid. It's Bama or Bonpa's birthday today, right? And then we'll share a photo of them in this thread. And so we absolutely still celebrate. I mean, this book right in back of me right here was my first trip to Colorado, and Bauma made that for me. It highlights my
Wow.
Colorado trip. Yeah, it's actually really amazing. Like she spent time creating this thing saying Seth's Colorado trip.
No way.
Yeah, and it's all of these photos of us on this trip. And then this is how old school it is. This is like the best part. She actually took the time on a typewriter to type out our itinerary for every single thing that we did. And I mean, it's in my top three favorite things
Hmm.
in the world.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
I've got my photo album right beneath it. That's so important. So I love that idea. It's really powerful. It definitely resonates with me. My last few questions are the questions that I ask everybody, and one of them was not on the sheet of questions. So money aside,
Hmm.
how would you describe a successful deal?
Money aside, how would I describe a successful deal? I would say one that leaves everyone happy. The founder's happy, the investors are happy, everybody's happy, right? You have done a good job of balancing all those different pieces, and you have created a successful company that is moving the world forward, right? It's doing something positive in the world.
Love that answer. Good.
Yeah.
Nice and sweet, right on
Yeah.
brand for you. My last question, would you attribute your success more to skill or luck?
It's funny. I have a daily quote on my computer, and the thing that popped up today was the Seneca quote: "Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity." It's very,
Mm.
very timely. I, I would say 100% luck. Honestly, anything that I know has been passed to me. Anything that I've been taught has been passed to me. My genes have been passed to me, etc. Right? I think absolutely I could give myself a little credit. I'm working hard, etc. I have some skills I've built, but I think it's all luck at the end of the day. I was born where I was. Amazing family, amazing teachers, friends. California just being this incredible place within the world itself. So I just, I attribute it all to everybody else, and it's really just the circumstances and challenges that I've gone through that have made me who I am, and so I don't think I'm too skilled.
I doubt that. You seem really skilled to me and like a good person. I'm glad to know you. Before we wrap things up, any parting thoughts? How do people learn a little bit more about LVG and you and anything else you want to share?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on, Seth. This was a lot of fun. I don't do a ton of speaking engagements, so this is really fun for me to just get on here and chat with you. I think you reached out to me initially pitching Wealth Block, and I'm glad I took that call. It's great to know you, and I'm excited for this friendship to continue. I think for new people, do what Seth did. Just shoot me an email or a LinkedIn or whatever. And, I try and get to everything. I was actually on a Tim Draper call, and he was like, I respond to every email. And I was like, man, I got to be better about that. So that's been a huge focus of mine lately is, if somebody puts in the work to reach out to me, they clearly have some sort of interest, and I'm going to try and give back. So just reach out. LinkedIn is a great one. Email. We have a little contact form on the website. So if anybody can get in contact, lucasvg.com, probably the easiest way.